The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a building. It was the beating heart of human knowledge. Imagine a place where the wisdom of ancient Greece, Egypt, Persia, and India converged, where scholars from across the known world gathered to study, debate, and preserve the greatest ideas of their time. This wasn't just a library. It was humanity's first attempt to collect and safeguard the sum of all knowledge. And yet, in one of history's most devastating losses, it vanished, leaving behind a void that still haunts us today. What exactly was lost when the Library of Alexandria burned? How could the destruction of a single institution ripple through centuries, shaping the course of science, philosophy, and culture in ways we're only beginning to understand? This is the story of the greatest loss in history, a tragedy that didn't just erase books but erased possibilities, discoveries, and perhaps even the future itself. Join me as we uncover the origins of this legendary library, the mystery of its destruction, and why its absence still echoes in the modern world. The story of the Library of Alexandria begins in the 3rd century BCE, during the reign of Ptolemy I Soter, one of Alexander the Great's most trusted generals. After Alexander's empire was divided, Ptolemy took control of Egypt and decided to make Alexandria, a city named after his legendary leader, into a beacon of knowledge and culture. But this wasn't just any library. Ptolemy envisioned something unprecedented, a universal repository of all the world's knowledge, a place where the wisdom of every civilization could be gathered under one roof. It was an audacious goal, one that would require not just ambition, but also ingenuity and resources on a scale never before attempted. Alexandria itself was the perfect setting for such a grand endeavor. Positioned at the crossroads of trade routes between Europe, Africa, and Asia, the city was a melting pot of cultures, ideas, and languages. Ships from distant lands docked at its bustling port, carrying not only goods but also scrolls, manuscripts, and scholars. This thriving hub of commerce and exchange provided the ideal environment for the library to flourish. Ptolemy's vision wasn't just about collecting books. It was about creating a center where knowledge could be shared, debated, and expanded. To achieve this, the library employed some truly remarkable methods. Agents were sent across the known world to acquire texts, often purchasing or copying them at great expense. Ships arriving in Alexandria were searched, and any scrolls found on board were confiscated, copied, and then returned to their owners if they were lucky. In some cases, the library kept the originals, offering copies as replacements. This aggressive approach to collecting meant that the library amassed an astonishing array of works, from the philosophical musings of Plato and Aristotle to the astronomical observations of Egyptian scholars. It was a treasure trove of human thought, unparalleled in its scope. But the Library of Alexandria wasn't just a storage facility for scrolls. It became a vibrant center of learning and innovation, attracting some of the greatest minds of the ancient world. Scholars from diverse backgrounds gathered here to study, debate, and push the boundaries of knowledge. They didn't just preserve existing ideas, they built upon them, advancing fields like mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. The library was more than a collection of books. It was a living, breathing institution that shaped the intellectual landscape of the ancient world. In many ways, the Library of Alexandria was a testament to humanity's thirst for understanding. It wasn't just about hoarding knowledge, it was about creating a space where that knowledge could grow, evolve, and inspire future generations. And for a time, it succeeded in ways that no other institution had before. But as we'll see, this grand experiment in universal knowledge would face challenges that even its founders couldn't have foreseen. The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a building, it was a universe of knowledge, a treasure trove so vast that its true size still leaves historians in awe. Estimates suggest it held anywhere from 40,000 to 400,000 scrolls, each one a window into the world's collective wisdom. To put that into perspective, imagine walking into a space where every shelf, every corner held the insights of ancient thinkers, meticulously preserved for future generations. This wasn't just a library, it was the intellectual heart of the ancient world. Its collection was as diverse as the cultures that contributed to it. Scrolls on mathematics, astronomy, and medicine sat alongside works of poetry, drama, and philosophy. Think of it, Aristotle's theories on the natural world might have been catalogued near lost plays by Sophocles or groundbreaking texts on early surgical techniques. Scholars from across the Mediterranean flocked to Alexandria, drawn by the promise of accessing this unparalleled repository. They didn't just come to read, they came to contribute, adding their own discoveries to the ever-growing archives. Among its most celebrated holdings were works that shaped human understanding for centuries. Astronomical treatises mapped the stars, while medical texts detailed treatments that were centuries ahead of their time. And then there were the literary treasures, plays, poems, and histories that captured the essence of ancient life. Some of these works, like the lost plays of Sophocles, are known only through references in other texts, leaving us to wonder what other masterpieces vanished when the library fell. But the Library of Alexandria wasn't just about the scrolls, it was about the ideas they sparked. Scholars from different backgrounds gathered here, debating, collaborating, and pushing the boundaries of knowledge. This wasn't just a place to store books, it was a living, breathing hub of intellectual exchange. The library didn't just house knowledge, it created it, fostering an environment where curiosity thrived and innovation flourished. This unique atmosphere made Alexandria not just a city of learning, but a beacon of human progress. Picture this, a bustling center of learning, where some of the greatest minds in history gathered under one roof. The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a repository of scrolls, it was a vibrant hub of intellectual activity, a place where scholars like Euclid, Archimedes, and Eratosthenes came together to explore the mysteries of the universe. These weren't just thinkers, they were pioneers who reshaped the way we understand the world. Euclid, often called the father of geometry, laid the groundwork for mathematical reasoning with his work Elements. This monumental text wasn't just a collection of theorems, it was a systematic approach to problem solving that influenced mathematicians for centuries. Then there was Archimedes, a genius who bridged the gap between mathematics and physics. His discoveries, like the principle of buoyancy and the concept of levers, were so groundbreaking that they still form the backbone of engineering today. And let's not forget Eratosthenes, the man who calculated the Earth's circumference with astonishing accuracy, using little more than shadows and a keen sense of observation. What made the Library of Alexandria truly special, though, wasn't just the brilliance of its scholars, it was the environment it created. Here, ideas flowed freely across disciplines and cultures. Scholars from Greece, Egypt, Persia, and beyond came together to share knowledge, debate theories, and challenge assumptions. The library wasn't just a place to store books, it was a melting pot of intellectual thought, where the wisdom of the ancient world was preserved, translated, and expanded upon. Think about it, a scholar in Alexandria could study Greek philosophy, Egyptian astronomy, and Indian mathematics, all under the same roof. This cross-pollination of ideas didn't just advance individual fields, it fostered a spirit of collaboration that pushed the boundaries of what humanity thought possible. The library became a beacon of enlightenment, drawing thinkers from across the ancient world and leaving an indelible mark on history. As we reflect on the legacy of these scholars, it's impossible not to wonder, how much further could they have gone if their work hadn't been lost? The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a collection of scrolls, it was a testament to the power of shared knowledge, a reminder that progress thrives when minds come together. And as we'll see, its influence didn't stop at the shores of Egypt. It rippled across the ancient world, shaping the course of history in ways we're still uncovering today. The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a repository of books. It was a living, breathing crossroads of cultures. Think of it as the ancient world's melting pot, where ideas from Greece, Egypt, Persia, and even distant India flowed together under one roof. This wasn't just a collection of scrolls, it was a meeting point for civilizations, a place where the wisdom of the East and the philosophies of the West could mingle and evolve. The library's mission was clear: to gather the world's knowledge and make it accessible to all, and it did so by actively seeking out texts from every corner of the known world, translating them into Greek, the lingua franca of the time, so that scholars from different backgrounds could engage with ideas that might otherwise have remained isolated. One of the library's most remarkable achievements was the translation of sacred texts like the Hebrew Bible into Greek. This project, known as the Septuagint, didn't just make religious texts accessible to a wider audience. It bridged cultural divides, allowing people from different traditions to explore each other's beliefs and histories. Imagine a Greek scholar in Alexandria reading the Psalms for the first time, or an Egyptian philosopher diving into the works of Persian astronomers. This wasn't just translation, it was transformation. The library was turning knowledge into a shared human experience, breaking down barriers and fostering a deeper understanding of the world. But this cultural exchange didn't just benefit the scholars who walked its halls. It enriched the library's collection itself. By bringing together texts from so many different traditions, the library became a living archive of human thought, a place where ideas could cross-pollinate and grow. Greek philosophy met Egyptian mathematics, Persian astronomy blended with Indian medicine, and the result was a body of knowledge that was greater than the sum of its parts. The library wasn't just preserving the past, it was shaping the future, advancing human understanding in ways that would resonate for centuries. Yet, maintaining this mission wasn't without its challenges. Imagine the logistical nightmare of acquiring, translating, and organizing thousands of scrolls from dozens of cultures, all while navigating the political and cultural tensions of the time. The library's very existence depended on the support of powerful patrons, and as the political landscape shifted, so too did the library's fortunes. It was a fragile balance, one that required constant effort to maintain. And as we'll see, this delicate equilibrium would eventually be tested in ways that would change the course of history. Alexandria, the jewel of the ancient world, was not just a city of knowledge but also a city caught in the crossfire of empires. Its strategic location on the Mediterranean made it a coveted prize for powerful rulers, but this same advantage also made it a target. The Library of Alexandria, as the heart of this intellectual hub, faced constant threats from the turbulent world around it. Wars were a recurring menace. The city's position between the Roman and Parthian empires meant it was often a battleground for competing powers. Each conflict brought destruction, and with it, the risk of losing irreplaceable scrolls and manuscripts. The library wasn't just a victim of external forces, though. Internal conflicts within Egypt itself, including power struggles among rulers and shifting political alliances, further destabilized the region. These tensions often diverted resources away from the library, leaving it vulnerable to neglect. Financial strain was another significant challenge. Maintaining such a vast collection was no small feat. The cost of acquiring new texts, copying scrolls, and preserving fragile papyrus in a climate that could hasten decay required substantial funding. As political priorities shifted, the library's budget often took a backseat to military campaigns or lavish royal projects. This lack of consistent support made it increasingly difficult to safeguard the library's treasures. And then there were the scrolls themselves. Ancient texts were incredibly fragile. Papyrus, the primary material used for writing, was susceptible to moisture, insects, and the passage of time. Even with the best efforts of scholars and caretakers, preserving these documents was a constant battle. Fire, too, was an ever-present danger. In a city where buildings were often constructed of wood and papyrus, a single spark could spell disaster. All of these factors, political instability, financial strain, and the fragility of the collection, set the stage for the library's eventual downfall. But it wasn't just one event that led to its destruction. It was a series of blows, each weakening the library's defenses until it could no longer withstand the pressures of its time. The story of its demise is as complex as the world it once served, a world where knowledge was both a treasure and a target. The story of the Library of Alexandria's first major catastrophe begins in the year 48 BC, during a time of political turmoil and military conflict. Julius Caesar, the famed Roman general, found himself embroiled in a siege of Alexandria, caught in a power struggle between Cleopatra and her brother Ptolemy XIII. As the city became a battleground, Caesar's forces set fire to their own ships in the harbor to prevent them from falling into enemy hands, but the flames didn't stay contained. They roared through the city, driven by the wind, and eventually reached the library. Accounts from ancient historians like Plutarch and Seneca describe the fire as catastrophic, claiming it consumed a significant portion of the library's priceless collection. Thousands of scrolls filled with knowledge from across the ancient world were reduced to ash, but here's where the story gets murky. Some historians argue that the damage wasn't as extensive as these accounts suggest. They point out that the library was part of a larger complex, the Mausoleum, and that only a portion of its holdings may have been destroyed. The truth is, we'll never know exactly how much was lost, whether it was a devastating blow or a more contained incident. What's clear, though, is that this event marked the beginning of the library's long, painful decline. Despite the destruction, the library didn't disappear overnight. Following the fire, there were efforts to recover and rebuild. Cleopatra, a passionate supporter of knowledge and culture, is said to have contributed scrolls from her own collection to help replenish the library's shelves. But even with these efforts, the library's golden age of unparalleled scholarship and innovation had begun to fade. This wasn't just a loss for Alexandria, it was a loss for the entire world. The fire of 48 BC was the first crack in the foundation of one of humanity's greatest treasures, and as we'll see, it wouldn't be the last. The story of the library's decline is a reminder of how fragile knowledge can be and how easily it can be lost in the chaos of human conflict. But it's also a testament to the resilience of those who fought to preserve it, even in the face of such devastation. As the Roman Empire extended its reach across the Mediterranean, the Library of Alexandria, once the crown jewel of intellectual achievement, began to falter under its new rulers. While the Romans admired Greek culture and philosophy, their priorities lay elsewhere. Conquest, infrastructure, and governance took precedence over the preservation of knowledge. The library, which had thrived under the patronage of the Ptolemies, found itself increasingly sidelined. Funding, once abundant, began to dry up, and the institution that had been a beacon of learning for centuries started to fade into the background. The decline wasn't sudden but gradual, a slow erosion of its former glory. Scholars who once flocked to Alexandria for its unparalleled resources began to drift away, seeking opportunities in other centers of learning across the empire. The library's collection, meticulously curated over generations, began to deteriorate. Scrolls were lost, damaged, or simply neglected, their priceless contents vanishing into obscurity. What had been a living, breathing hub of intellectual exchange became more of a relic, a shadow of its former self. But the library's decline wasn't just a matter of neglect, it was also caught in the crossfire of shifting ideologies. As Christianity began to rise in prominence, the philosophical and religious landscape of the Roman Empire underwent a dramatic transformation. The library, with its vast collection of pagan texts and diverse philosophical works, became a symbol of the old order. Some Christian leaders viewed its contents with suspicion, seeing it as a repository of ideas that conflicted with emerging religious doctrines. This tension further marginalized the library, pushing it further to the fringes of society. Yet, even as its influence waned, the Library of Alexandria might have endured had it not been for the final, devastating blow. The exact details of this event remain shrouded in mystery, but what is clear is that by the late 4th or early 5th century, the library was no more. Whether by fire, war, or deliberate destruction, the institution that had once housed the collective knowledge of the ancient world was gone, taking with it countless works of literature, science, and philosophy that would never be recovered. This loss marked not just the end of a library, but the end of an era, a turning point in the history of human knowledge. The story of the Library of Alexandria takes a dramatic turn as we reach the late 4th century CE, a time of profound change in the ancient world. This period marked the rise of Christianity, which was rapidly spreading across the Roman Empire, reshaping societies and challenging long-standing traditions. At the heart of this transformation was Theophilus, the Christian patriarch of Alexandria, whose actions would become central to the library's final chapter. Theophilus, a powerful and controversial figure, oversaw a city that was deeply divided between the old pagan ways and the new Christian faith. Under his leadership, the Christian community in Alexandria grew stronger, and with that strength came a growing intolerance for pagan institutions. Temples dedicated to ancient gods were repurposed or destroyed, and the Library of Alexandria, with its vast collection of pagan texts, became a target. In 391 CE, Theophilus is said to have ordered the destruction of the Serapium, a temple that housed a significant portion of the library's collection. This act is often seen as the final blow to what remained of the Great Library, though the full story is far more complex. Historians have long debated whether the destruction of the library was a deliberate act of cultural eradication or the result of gradual neglect. Some argue that Theophilus and his followers actively sought to erase pagan knowledge, seeing it as a threat to their faith. Others suggest that the library had already been in decline for centuries, its collections scattered, lost, or burned in earlier conflicts, and that Theophilus's actions merely sealed its fate. What's clear, however, is that the rise of Christianity marked a turning point for Alexandria and its intellectual legacy. The library, once a beacon of learning and diversity, became a symbol of the clash between old and new worldviews. The aftermath of the library's destruction was felt far beyond Alexandria. For centuries, it had been a center of scholarship where thinkers from across the ancient world gathered to exchange ideas. Its loss meant the disappearance of countless works of literature, science, and philosophy knowledge that might have shaped the course of history in ways we can only imagine. The void it left behind was immense, and its absence is still mourned by scholars and dreamers alike. As we reflect on this pivotal moment, it's worth considering how the loss of the Library of Alexandria serves as a reminder of the fragility of human knowledge. In a world where ideas can be extinguished as quickly as they are born, the story of the library challenges us to think about how we preserve and protect the wisdom of the past, and how we might ensure that such a loss never happens again. The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a building filled with scrolls, it was a treasure chest of human thought, a repository of knowledge that spanned the known world. When it was lost, humanity didn't just lose books. We lost entire fields of study, groundbreaking ideas, and cultural masterpieces that could have shaped our understanding of the universe. Among the most devastating losses were works on medicine, astronomy, and philosophy texts that might have propelled human progress forward by centuries. Imagine the medical breakthroughs that could have come from ancient Greek physicians like Theophilus, who studied the nervous system, or Erasistratus, who explored the circulatory system. Their writings, now gone, might have revolutionized healthcare long before the Renaissance. Astronomy suffered a similar blow. The library housed detailed observations of the stars, planets, and celestial movements, some of which were far ahead of their time. Scholars like Aristarchus of Samos had proposed a heliocentric model of the solar system centuries before Copernicus, but his work vanished with the library. What if his ideas had been preserved and built upon? Our understanding of the cosmos might look entirely different today. And then there's philosophy. Thinkers like Aristotle, whose works survived only in part, had insights into ethics, logic, and the natural world that could have enriched intellectual discourse for generations. The library held not just their finished works, but also their notes, drafts, and lesser-known writings, layers of thought that are now lost forever. But it wasn't just scientific and philosophical knowledge that was erased. The library was home to entire genres of literature, including Greek tragedies that have vanished without a trace. These plays weren't just entertainment, they were reflections of society, morality, and human emotion. They captured the struggles, triumphs, and tragedies of ancient life, offering a window into the culture and values of their time. Losing them means losing a piece of our shared human story, a connection to the past that can never be fully restored. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria wasn't just a blow to the ancient world, it was a loss for all of humanity. The knowledge that disappeared could have accelerated advancements in science, medicine, and philosophy, reshaping the course of history. And the cultural heritage that was erased, it's a reminder of how fragile our collective memory can be. Every scroll that burned represented not just words on parchment, but the hopes, dreams, and discoveries of countless individuals. Their loss is a stark reminder of how much we stand to lose when we fail to protect our shared intellectual legacy. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria didn't just erase books, it erased ideas, discoveries, and entire fields of knowledge that could have transformed the world centuries earlier. Among the most devastating losses were the scientific and medical texts that had been painstakingly compiled and studied within its walls. These works represented the cutting edge of human understanding in fields like astronomy, mathematics, and medicine, fields that would take centuries to recover, and in some cases never fully regain what was lost. Take astronomy, for example. Among the library's collection were works by ancient scholars who had begun to question the long-held belief that the Earth was the center of the universe. Some historians suggest that early theories of heliocentrism, the idea that the planets revolve around the sun, may have been explored in texts that were lost forever. Instead of building on these ideas, humanity had to wait until the Renaissance, when figures like Copernicus and Galileo rediscovered what might have already been known. Imagine how different our understanding of the cosmos could have been if those ancient insights had been preserved. Medicine suffered a similar fate. The library housed advanced studies on anatomy, surgery, and disease that were far ahead of their time. Ancient physicians like Theophilus and Erasistratus had already begun dissecting human bodies to understand their inner workings, a practice that wouldn't become common again for over 1,000 years. Their findings, meticulously recorded, could have revolutionized medical practice, but instead, much of their knowledge vanished, leaving later generations to start from scratch. Even basic surgical techniques, like the use of ligatures to stop bleeding, had to be rediscovered centuries later. Mathematics, too, faced a setback. The works of great thinkers like Euclid and Archimedes survived in fragments, but countless other texts full of potential breakthroughs were lost. The the library's collection might have included solutions to problems that baffled mathematicians for generations, or even entirely new branches of mathematics that we can only speculate about today. The destruction of the library didn't just delay progress, it erased possibilities. And yet, the greatest tragedy may be what we don't know. The library's vast archives contained not just the works of famous scholars, but also the ideas of countless unnamed thinkers whose contributions were never recorded elsewhere. These lost voices could have shaped our understanding of the world in ways we can't even imagine. The rediscovery of ancient knowledge during the Renaissance was a turning point for human progress, but even that revival was limited by the gaps left by the library's destruction. The thinkers of the Renaissance were working with fragments, piecing together a puzzle with crucial pieces missing. This loss didn't just affect science and medicine, it rippled through philosophy and literature as well. The library was a repository of ideas, a place where the greatest minds of the ancient world came together to explore the nature of existence, morality, and the human condition. Its destruction didn't just set back progress, it silenced voices that could have shaped the course of human thought for centuries to come. Among the countless treasures lost in the flames that consumed the Library of Alexandria, perhaps the most devastating were the philosophical and literary works that vanished forever. Imagine the wisdom of Aristotle, preserved in texts we will never read, treatises on ethics, politics, and the natural world that could have deepened our understanding of his groundbreaking ideas. Picture the dialogues of Plato, not just the ones we know today, but those that were lost to time, containing insights into his theories on justice, governance, and the human soul. These were not just books, they were the building blocks of Western thought, the intellectual foundation upon which centuries of philosophy, science, and culture were built. The loss extends beyond philosophy. The library housed an extraordinary collection of poetry and drama, works by playwrights and poets whose names we may never know, but whose words could have resonated across millennia. Imagine the tragedies and comedies performed in ancient theaters, the verses sung at festivals, all preserved in scrolls that turned to ash. These were not mere stories, they were reflections of human experience, capturing emotions, conflicts, and triumphs that transcend time. Their absence leaves a void in our cultural heritage, a missing chapter in the story of who we are. Historical accounts, too, were lost chronicles of kings, explorers, and ordinary people whose lives shaped the ancient world. These texts could have offered us a richer, more nuanced understanding of history, revealing the complexities of societies long gone. Without them, we are left with fragments, piecing together a narrative that will always feel incomplete. But the Library of Alexandria was more than just a repository of knowledge. It was a symbol, a beacon of human curiosity and the pursuit of understanding. Its destruction represents not just the loss of individual works, but the shattering of a dream, the dream of preserving and sharing the collective wisdom of humanity. This is why its loss is so profound, so haunting. It reminds us of the fragility of knowledge and the responsibility we have to protect it for future generations. The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a building filled with scrolls, it was a living, breathing testament to humanity's relentless pursuit of knowledge. Think about it, here was a place where scholars from across the ancient world gathered, debating ideas, recording discoveries, and preserving the wisdom of countless cultures. It was more than a library, it was a beacon of intellectual unity, a place where the collective achievements of humanity were stored, studied, and celebrated. But the destruction of the library wasn't just about the physical loss of books. It was a blow to our shared human legacy. Imagine entire works of philosophy, science, and history, irreplaceable treasures of thought vanishing in an instant. These weren't just texts, they were the voices of generations, the accumulated knowledge of civilizations that had come before. And when the library burned, those voices were silenced forever. This loss reminds us of something profound. Knowledge is fragile. It can be erased, forgotten, or destroyed in the blink of an eye. The story of the Library of Alexandria teaches us that preserving knowledge isn't just about safeguarding books or scrolls. It's about protecting the very essence of who we are and what we've learned as a species. It's a lesson that resonates even today in a world where information is both abundant and vulnerable. Consider this: in our modern age, we face new challenges in preserving knowledge. Digital archives can be hacked, corrupted, or lost. Entire libraries of data could disappear with the click of a button. And while we've made incredible strides in storing information, the question remains: are we doing enough to protect it for future generations? The story of Alexandria isn't just a tale from the past, it's a cautionary reminder for the present and the future. So, what can we learn from the library's fate? Perhaps it's this: knowledge isn't just a commodity, it's a responsibility. It's up to us to ensure that the lessons of the past aren't lost, that the wisdom of those who came before us continues to light the way for those who will come after. The Library of Alexandria may be gone, but its legacy lives on, not just in the fragments of texts that survived, but in the enduring spirit of curiosity and discovery that it represents. And as we reflect on that spirit, it's worth asking ourselves, what are we doing today to honor that legacy? How can we ensure that our own contributions to knowledge are preserved, not just for years or decades, but for centuries to come? Because in the end, the story of Alexandria isn't just about what was lost, it's about what we stand to gain if we learn from it. But the story of the Library of Alexandria isn't just a tale of the past, it's a stark reminder of how fragile knowledge can be, even in our modern world. Think about it. Today, we face threats to information that echo the challenges of ancient Alexandria, just in different forms. Censorship, for instance, still silences voices and erases ideas, much like the political turmoil that may have contributed to the library's demise. And while we no longer store our collective wisdom in scrolls, our digital age brings its own vulnerabilities. Data loss, hacking, and even the accidental deletion of files can wipe out entire archives in an instant. It's a humbling thought. Even with all our technology, knowledge remains as delicate as ever. Then there's the destruction of cultural heritage sites, a modern tragedy that mirrors the loss of Alexandria's treasures. From the ancient city of Palmyra in Syria to the Buddhas of Bamiyan in Afghanistan, we've seen how quickly centuries of history can be erased. These aren't just buildings or artifacts, they're repositories of human stories, ideas, and identities. When they're gone, a part of our shared history disappears with them, but there's hope. In response to these challenges, there's a growing movement to preserve and protect knowledge for future generations. Digital archives, for example, are becoming a cornerstone of modern preservation efforts. Organizations like the Internet Archive and UNESCO are working tirelessly to save books, websites, and even entire libraries in digital form. And it's not just about storage, it's about accessibility. Projects like Google Books and open access initiatives are making knowledge more available than ever before, breaking down barriers that once kept information locked away. Yet, even with these efforts, the question remains: how do we ensure that what we save today will survive tomorrow? The digital age brings its own set of challenges. File formats become obsolete, storage devices fail, and the sheer volume of information makes it difficult to decide what's worth preserving. It's a reminder that safeguarding knowledge is an ongoing battle, one that requires constant vigilance and innovation. So, as we reflect on the loss of the Library of Alexandria, we're left with more than just a sense of awe at what was destroyed. We're reminded of the enduring fragility of knowledge itself. And yet, there's something deeply inspiring about the human drive to preserve, share, and uncover the mysteries of our past, which brings us back to the library itself. What secrets did it hold? What stories were lost to the flames? The answers may be gone forever, but the questions they provoke continue to captivate us, keeping the legacy of Alexandria alive in our imaginations. But what if not everything was lost? What if fragments of the Library of Alexandria's vast collection survived the fires, the invasions, and the passage of time? This is the tantalizing mystery that historians and archaeologists have been chasing for centuries. While the library itself may have been reduced to ashes, some scholars believe that certain texts copied by scribes or hidden away in private collections might still exist, waiting to be rediscovered. Imagine the possibility of holding a scroll that once sat on those ancient shelves, a direct link to the wisdom of the past. Over the years, there have been whispers of discoveries. Medieval manuscripts found in monasteries, ancient texts preserved in the dry sands of Egypt, or even fragments of works once thought to be lost forever. For example, some of the writings of the Greek philosopher Archimedes were found centuries later, hidden beneath the ink of a medieval prayer book. These discoveries give us hope that more treasures from the Library of Alexandria might still be out there, waiting to be uncovered. Archaeologists continue to search for clues, piecing together the library's legacy from scattered fragments and references in other works. The idea that some of the library's knowledge survived is more than just wishful thinking. It's a testament to the resilience of human curiosity. Even in the face of destruction, people found ways to preserve and pass on what they could. Copying texts by hand, hiding them in secret collections, or even memorizing entire works were acts of defiance against the forces that sought to erase knowledge. And today, modern technology offers new tools to uncover what might still be hidden. High-resolution imaging, for instance, allows researchers to read texts that were overwritten or faded beyond recognition. But the story of the Library of Alexandria isn't just about what was lost or what might still be found. It's also a lesson in the fragility of knowledge and the importance of preserving it. The library's destruction reminds us that progress isn't guaranteed. It requires effort, dedication, and a commitment to safeguarding the wisdom of the past. In a world where information can disappear with the click of a button, the lessons of Alexandria feel more relevant than ever. What will we do to ensure that the knowledge we value today survives for future generations? As we reflect on the legacy of the Library of Alexandria, it's impossible not to feel a sense of awe and perhaps a bit of responsibility. The library's story challenges us to think about what we value, how we preserve it, and what we might lose if we're not careful. And who knows, perhaps somewhere in a forgotten corner of the world, a piece of the library's collection is waiting to be found, ready to rewrite history once again. The story of the Library of Alexandria isn't just a tale of ancient history. It's a powerful reminder of how fragile knowledge can be and why it's worth protecting. At its peak, the library was more than just a building filled with scrolls. It was a living, breathing hub of ideas where scholars from across the known world came together to share, debate, and advance human understanding. Its destruction, whether gradual or sudden, stands as a stark lesson. Knowledge once lost is often gone forever, but beyond the tragedy, there's also inspiration. The library's existence shows us what's possible when we prioritize the pursuit of wisdom and the exchange of ideas. It wasn't just a place for storing books, it was a symbol of humanity's collective curiosity, a testament to our shared desire to learn and grow. One of the most profound lessons we can take from the Library of Alexandria is the importance of cultural exchange. The library wasn't limited to Greek or Egyptian texts. It collected works from Persia, India, and beyond, creating a melting pot of perspectives that enriched everyone who studied there. This openness to diverse ideas wasn't just progressive for its time. It's a model we can still learn from today. In a world that often feels divided, the library reminds us that progress thrives when we listen to voices from different cultures, traditions, and disciplines. It's a call to build institutions that don't just preserve knowledge, but actively encourage collaboration across borders. And then there's the question of legacy. The Library of Alexandria may be gone, but its spirit lives on in modern libraries, universities, and even the internet. These are the places where knowledge is stored, shared, and expanded, just as it was in Alexandria. But with that comes a responsibility to protect these institutions from the same forces that led to the library's downfall. Whether it's neglect, conflict, or even censorship, the threats to intellectual heritage are real and they require vigilance. The story of Alexandria challenges us to ask, what are we doing to ensure that the knowledge we value today will still be accessible to future generations? Ultimately, the Library of Alexandria teaches us that knowledge isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity. It's the foundation of progress, the key to understanding our world, and the bridge that connects us to the past and the future. Its loss was a tragedy, but its story is a call to action. It reminds us that every generation has a role to play in building and preserving the institutions that keep the flame of learning alive. And in a world that's constantly changing, that lesson is more important than ever. The echoes of the Library of Alexandria still resonate today, shaping the way we think about knowledge, culture, and the preservation of human achievement. While the original library may have been lost to history, its spirit lives on in modern institutions that strive to carry forward its mission. Take, for example, the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, a stunning modern library built in Alexandria in 2002 as a tribute to its ancient predecessor. This architectural marvel isn't just a nod to the past, it's a bold statement about the enduring importance of sharing knowledge across borders and generations. With its vast collections, cutting-edge technology, and commitment to fostering cultural dialogue, the Bibliotheca Alexandrina stands as a beacon of hope in a world that often feels divided. But the influence of the ancient library extends far beyond this single institution. Universities, research centers, and public libraries around the globe owe a debt to Alexandria's vision. The idea that knowledge should be accessible to all, regardless of background or status, is a principle that drives countless modern efforts to democratize information. Think about how today's digital libraries and open access platforms aim to break down barriers, much like the Library of Alexandria did in its time. It's a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge is not just about preserving the past, but about building a future where everyone can participate in the conversation. Yet, as we celebrate these modern achievements, it's impossible not to reflect on what was lost when the ancient library burned. The destruction of Alexandria's collection wasn't just the loss of scrolls and manuscripts, it was the erasure of countless voices, ideas, and stories that might have shaped our understanding of the world. This loss serves as a stark reminder of how fragile knowledge can be, how easily it can vanish if we don't actively protect and nurture it. In a way, the story of the Library of Alexandria is a call to action, urging us to value and safeguard the repositories of knowledge that define our shared humanity. As we look to the future, the legacy of the Library of Alexandria challenges us to ask, how can we ensure that the knowledge we create today doesn't suffer the same fate? How can we build institutions that not only preserve but also inspire? These questions are more relevant now than ever as we navigate an age of rapid technological change and cultural transformation. The story of Alexandria isn't just a tale of what was lost, it's a story of what we can still gain if we commit to keeping the flame of knowledge alive. The burning of the Library of Alexandria wasn't just the loss of a building, it was the erasure of centuries of human thought. Imagine the countless scrolls, each a thread in the tapestry of ancient knowledge gone forever. The library wasn't merely a repository of books, it was a beacon of intellectual progress, a place where the brightest minds of the ancient world gathered to share ideas, challenge assumptions, and push the boundaries of what humanity could achieve. Its destruction didn't just silence the voices of the past, it altered the trajectory of the future. Consider the fields of science and philosophy. The library housed works by thinkers like Euclid, whose principles of geometry still shape our world today, and Ptolemy, whose astronomical theories guided explorers for centuries. But how many other ideas were lost? How many breakthroughs in medicine, mathematics, or engineering vanished in the flames? The loss didn't just set back progress, it created gaps in knowledge that took generations to fill. Without the library, humanity had to rediscover much of what had already been known, slowing the pace of innovation and leaving us to wonder what might have been. And what about the cultural impact? The library was a melting pot of ideas where Greek, Egyptian, Persian, and Indian thought intersected. It was a place where different cultures could learn from one another, fostering a spirit of collaboration and understanding. Its destruction severed those connections, leaving behind a fragmented world. The loss of shared knowledge made it harder for societies to build on each other's achievements, creating silos of thought that took centuries to bridge. But perhaps the most haunting question is this: what if the library had survived? What if those scrolls had been preserved, their wisdom passed down through the ages? Would we have unlocked the secrets of the universe sooner? Would we have avoided centuries of conflict born from ignorance? The what-if scenarios are endless, and they remind us of the fragility of human progress. The library's loss is a stark reminder of how much we stand to lose when we fail to protect our collective knowledge. This isn't just a story about the past, it's a lesson for the present. In a world where information is more accessible than ever, we still face the risk of losing it. Digital archives can be deleted, books can be banned, and entire histories can be erased with the click of a button. The story of the Library of Alexandria challenges us to think about how we preserve and protect knowledge today. It's a call to action, urging us to learn from history so we don't repeat its mistakes. As we reflect on the library's legacy, we're reminded of the power of ideas and the responsibility we all share to safeguard them. The loss of the Library of Alexandria was a tragedy, but it also offers us a chance to build a future where knowledge is cherished, shared, and preserved for generations to come. The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a building filled with scrolls, it was a living, breathing monument to human curiosity and the pursuit of knowledge. Its destruction represents one of the most devastating losses in history, not because of the physical structure itself, but because of what it symbolized: the collective wisdom of countless civilizations gathered in one place. Imagine a repository where the works of ancient philosophers, scientists, and poets coexisted, offering insights into the natural world, the cosmos, and the human condition. This wasn't just a library, it was humanity's first attempt to compile and preserve the vastness of human thought. And when it was lost, so too was an irreplaceable treasure trove of knowledge, some of which we may never recover. What makes this loss so profound is the sheer scale of what was destroyed. Scholars estimate that the library housed hundreds of thousands of scrolls, each containing works that could have reshaped our understanding of history, science, and philosophy. Think of the lost plays of Sophocles, the missing treatises of Aristotle, or the vanished astronomical records of ancient Egypt. These weren't just books. They were windows into worlds we can now only glimpse through fragments and second-hand accounts. The destruction of the library didn't just erase knowledge, it erased entire perspectives, ideas, and ways of thinking that might have transformed the course of human history. Yet, even in its absence, the Library of Alexandria continues to captivate us. Its story resonates because it speaks to something universal: the fragility of knowledge. In a world where information can be lost as easily as it's created, the library serves as a powerful reminder of what's at stake when we fail to protect our intellectual heritage. It's no wonder that historians, writers, and dreamers alike are drawn to its legacy. The library's tale is one of both tragedy and inspiration, a cautionary story about the consequences of neglect, but also a testament to humanity's relentless drive to seek, preserve, and understand. As we reflect on this great loss, it's impossible not to wonder how different our world might be if the library had survived. What discoveries might have been accelerated, what ideas might have flourished, and perhaps more importantly, what can we learn from its story today? In an age where information is more accessible than ever, the Library of Alexandria reminds us that knowledge is not just something to be consumed, it's something to be cherished, protected, and passed on. Its legacy endures not in the scrolls that were lost, but in the lessons it continues to teach us about the value of what we know and what we stand to lose. The story of the Library of Alexandria is one of brilliance, tragedy, and enduring lessons. From its founding in the 3rd century BC as a beacon of knowledge under the Ptolemaic dynasty, to its role as the intellectual heartbeat of the ancient world, the library stood as a testament to humanity's thirst for understanding. It housed an unparalleled collection of scrolls, texts, and ideas from across civilizations, fostering groundbreaking discoveries in science, philosophy, and the arts. But its destruction, whether by fire, conflict, or gradual neglect, remains one of history's greatest losses, a stark reminder of how fragile knowledge can be in the face of chaos. Yet, the legacy of the Library of Alexandria is far from lost. Its spirit lives on in the way we value education, preserve history, and strive to make knowledge accessible to all. The library's story teaches us that the pursuit of wisdom is both a privilege and a responsibility, one that requires vigilance to protect the ideas that shape our world. It's a call to action, urging us to safeguard the stories, discoveries, and truths that define our shared humanity. As we reflect on this remarkable chapter of history, let's remember the words of Carl Sagan, who once said, "The library was the brain and glory of the greatest city on the planet, the first true research institute in the history of the world. Its loss is a poignant reminder what we stand to lose when we fail to cherish and protect our collective knowledge, but it's also a beacon of hope, inspiring us to build a future where learning is celebrated, preserved, and shared." What do you think the Library of Alexandria's story teaches us about the value of knowledge today? How can we ensure that the lessons of the past guide us toward a brighter future? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you're intrigued by this incredible piece of history, dive deeper into the world of ancient libraries and the timeless quest for understanding. Thanks for joining me on this journey through one of history's most fascinating and heartbreaking tales. Let's keep the spirit of Alexandria alive.